Hi guys, regular guy here. Hey, I've been doing my scrolling for a little bit now, and I do it in different places, and it's getting to the point now. At least once every venue that I go to, someone asks me if I give lessons. I'm kind of on the fence on that now. I mean, if I could find someone that enough people to do it, then sure, yeah, I guess I could. But I'm also getting more requests for more scrolling videos. So I'm going to do some more scrolling, and I want to delve into a little bit more into saws and blades and patterns and things like that. So here we go. All right, let's start off with the scroll saw. I don't consider myself a minimalist. However, I really don't get any more than I need. I like a saw it's got to have a pretty big depth of cut. They call that the throat. You can get a 12-inch. I mean, if that's what you have to start with, that's fine. That's awesome. Use what you have. I mean, if you've got thousands of dollars laying around and you want to get yourself, top of the line, the Rolls Royce of saws, go get you a Hegner, go get you an RBI. Are they better? I don't know. I mean, I've used them all. I've never owned one of them. I've owned Craftsman, Delta, Dremel, what's the yellow one? DeWalt. DeWalt is actually my favorite. Go with the 788. If you've got $500 laying around and you want to get you a saw, I mean a nice, good saw for the money, the best value, I think, for the money, is you can't beat the DeWalt. Yeah, it's got the parallel arms. It's not just one big seat that kind of oscillates up and down and cuts the wood. The arms are parallel, so they move in unison, rather than one big. They move in unison, so yeah, they work better. The vibration is very minimal, and it's a good saw. But if all you have is a 12-inch, 40-year-old Craftsman, that's fine too. Make sure you keep everything lubed, everything oiled. All your pivot points. Just don't be afraid to over oil. You can't over oil these things. So feel free to just drench it in oil, all the pivot points. Don't put any in the engine though, in the motor, because you'll burn it out. But the pivot points, where the blade connects to the clamp, or if you have a pin type, it's going to pivot there. So you're going to want to put a drop of oil in that. Top and bottom pivoting arms, all the pivot points. You'll see where it moves. All the moving parts, except for the motor. Yeah, do that. And it'll last you better. The table, okay? If you're gonna get you a saw, and you get the table, my table looks like this. It's kind of smooth. It's rust stained, but it is what it is. So it gets wet sometimes. I brush the wetness off, the rust off, and it stains, but you can't feel it. And I like to keep a coat of wax on mine. So, everything slides easy. I mean, you're bad enough, you're fighting the wood, you're fighting the blade, you don't want to fight the table as well. So, put a coat of wax on it. And I like to hone mine down. I'll get a honing stone, like from the Dollar Tree. And I'll kind of put some water on and rub that honing stone across till you get a lot of those big grooves out of it. You know what I mean? And if you get yourself a new scroll saw, you'll know exactly what I mean. So go ahead and do that. Get you some steel wool. Put you on a coat of car wax. Go get you some turtle wax for $5. The paste wax. Put it on. Give it about 15 minutes to dry. Buff it off. Nice and smooth. So yep, and that's where you're going to start. Start where you are. Yeah, small blade, small Small saws are fine. Okay, let's start with blades. It comes with blades. It's very important to take those blades and throw them in the trash. They're garbage. Home Depot, Lowe's, any place like that, any home improvement store, steer clear of all that stuff. If you got a specialty woodworking shop in your town where you go, go ahead and go there and ask for, by name, Olson Precision Ground Teeth. Those are the blades you want. The other ones are just, they're kind of stamped out, they're punched out of metal, and they pull. Sorry, I gotta get a little more comfortable here. They pull to the side. When you're cutting, most of the cutting surface is on one side of the blade, so it's gonna kind of pull you in a weird direction. And these are just flat blades. These are not spiral. These are all flat. So go ahead and get you some flat blades. Olson, or another brand that I've heard of and I've never used, but I've got nothing but great reports from, are Flying Dutchman. Go ahead and use them, but they got to be precision ground teeth. Otherwise, you might as well just go to Home Depot. But you don't want to go to Home Depot. Don't get your blades from a box store. Go to Olson.com, precision ground teeth. I like the reverse tooth. The bottom, probably 7 teeth or so, are pointing up. Because when your saw cuts, it oscillates up and down. And the downstroke is where you want it to cut. So all the blades, all the teeth on the blade, except for the bottom ones, are pointing down. If they're all pointing up, you're not going to be able to hold your workpiece down. Because when you have it down on the table, the actual blade moving down is what's going to hold it. But the few that point up, what they're going to do is they're going to cut the bottom smoothly, so it doesn't blow out the bottom like a bandsaw might. And those of you who've worked with bandsaws, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Olson blades, Flying Dutchman blades. Number 9 is what I use. I think it's a 9 or a 5. I can't remember. I buy mine by the gross, and it lasts me decades. It does. But yeah, put them guys in, and if you've been using the other blades, get you some of these, put them in. You're gonna say, wow, because I did. So yeah, let's do that. Go ahead and do that. And another thing to remember is tension on your blade. Alright guys, when you get your blade, you put it in, you've got a clamp on the top here. I use the pinless type. You've got a clamp on the top and a clamp on the bottom. When you get your blades, you put it in there, you clamp it on the top, and you're going to want to adjust the tension on this. Now, how I do it, I turn it, I loosen it, or I tighten it. When I put tension on, I like a lot of tension on my blade. When I'm cutting a piece of wood and a squirrel farted in this tree, I want to feel it while I'm cutting. And that's what you do. And make sure, if you turn your saw on and your work piece is doing this, you got your blade upside down. Take your blade out, flip it around, put it back in. Make sure your teeth are in the front, because if they're in the back, well, it's not really going to do you any good. So make sure you got all that done, and then it's time to choose a pattern. Now what I did, I went online and I found a picture of a palm tree. Doesn't really look much like a palm tree, but what I did was I made a copy, printed it out, I spray adhesived it onto a piece of masonite, 1/8 inch masonite, which I find works pretty good for patterns. Because if for any reason they break, you can always just glue them back together. But print it out, cut it, and when you cut that guy out, you got yourself a pattern. I like to make my own patterns because this way I get exactly what I want. Alright guys, you find yourself a piece of wood. I've got a piece of wood here from a pallet that I had, and it's just a piece of pallet wood. It's just yeah, pallet wood. So what I'm going to do is I see an area here where this pattern will fit. So what I'm probably going to do is trim that guy, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this pattern whichever direction you want to. And this is another thing I want to get into is direction and of course grain. You're always going to want to keep those things in mind, and if you want to use a pen to do this, feel free. I like pencil because it's just easier to remove a pencil mark than it is a pen mark. Alright, well, can't really see all of it because of the graining of the wood, but well, here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the tension on my blade, and I'm going to cut this guy in half. Yeah, that'll work. Alright. Now on a pattern like this, you see that the tree will have this long, the trunk on it. If you have the pattern going across the grain this way, then that's going to make it kind of weak. So you want the grain going in the same direction as the longest pattern, the longest strip of pattern. Because if it's going across this way, it'll break so easy. This way it won't. And I've got a flat spot on the bottom. Now you want to either make that perfectly flat or make it a little concave. That way when you stand it up, it's not going to be rocking back and forth. And I'll show you. What I do is line that guy up and make it a little bit concave. And if you're happy with your pattern, then just follow the line. Now when you're cutting this, you cut this as fast or as slow as you feel comfortable to cut. Let's say, for example, if you want to make the leaf a little bit broader, you can see how I go outside the line here. And it's, you know, as long as you make your straight lines straight and your curved lines smooth, nobody's really going to notice. And as long as it looks like a palm tree when you're done, I mean, that's that's going to be the whole thing right there. If you think you can make your project look better by going outside the lines or inside the lines, whichever direction you're going, then go for it. Because remember, whatever it is that you're making, as long as you are the one cutting it, it's yours. It's your project. You make it how you want it. And then come out the way you went in. And it stands. So, that's what I like to do. Now, I like to go counterclockwise. Most people I know, they cut clockwise. If that's what you want to do, cool. You know, it's just 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You do what you want to do. But now this palm tree, it's cute. But I can make it look better. You just have to remember not to take too much out. If you want to add more details to your project, just remember, the more detail you add, the weaker your project becomes because you're cutting wood out of it. And try to make it look, well, I don't want to say as real as possible, but, less cartoony, I guess. In this case, you have to kind of think of, what does a palm tree look like? What makes it a palm tree? And, as the leaves, as they slump down, they tend to get little rips in them, so I try to do that. Now, to me, I'd call that a successful palm tree. What I would do is sand it on either side. If you have a sanding block or a sander, just go ahead and sand it. Make sure what I like to do is sand it kind of against the grain to start with, and then with the grain. And there's a palm tree. And make sure you hit the back as well, because, people will see the back, although that's not the presentation side. And there's a palm tree. That's how you do that. When you're not using it, take the tension off your blade. Wow, my blade is really burned up. I used the blade mostly yesterday, so it's going to be a little bit dull. But this piece of wood here is it's not quite an inch, but I'd say it was probably 7/8 when I started. I mean, that's more than 3/4, so that's a good chunk of wood. But it's a successful palm tree, and it works for anything that you guys want to do. If you have any questions, comments, or tips, ideas, please leave a comment and let me know. Here's the blade that I use. This is the Olsen Precision Ground Teeth. Now, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see these teeth. Probably not. You see the bottoms are cut on an angle. Oops. On an angle here. And this one goes this way. This one goes this way. Now, what I've found is where the angle goes, if it's going towards the teeth, that'll be your bottom. That's my bottom right there. And you probably can't notice it because, my phone is kind of weird, but the bottom teeth are pointing up. The other teeth are pointing down. Let's see if I can get a better contrast here. Yeah, they're pointing up. The others are pointing down. And when you put it in, you put it in like this. So, when it comes to scrolling, I'm going to say probably 40% of scrolling is your equipment. Get yourself a decent saw. Doesn't have to be very expensive. If you can get one at a yard sale, that's fine. As long as it doesn't, have too much play in it. It moves up and down like it's supposed to. You put a decent blade in there. And get yourself some wood that doesn't have any metal in it, because that'll kill a blade. I mean, if you cut through a staple, change your blade. They're that sensitive. Yeah. But as long as you're just cutting wood or plywood, you should be good for, I don't know, maybe an hour of cutting, half hour of cutting. Buy your blades by the gross like I do. It costs you about $70 for 144 of them, so that's not a bad deal. And wherever you have to cut, when I first started scrolling, when I was married, we had 2 walk-in closets and I used one as a workshop in an apartment. So wherever you need to go, whatever you need to do. If you want to do it, do it. This is Regular Guy, and thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you later.